People often assume that being underestimated is a disadvantage. After 15 years in corporate America, I learned to make it my superpower. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and this is the story of how I turned from just a secretary into the CEO who transformed an entire industry. The Meridian Group had been my home for 12 years. I started as an executive assistant to James Harrison, the CEO who thought a corner office and an inflated ego were suitable substitutes for actual business acumen. While he spent his days playing corporate politics and golf, I spent mine learning every aspect of our technology consulting business. What no one knew, not even Harrison, was that I had been methodically buying company stock since my first day. Not through normal channels, of course. I created an investment corporation, Mitchell Ventures, under my grandmother's maiden name Walker. For 12 years, Sarah Mitchell was Harrison's efficient but unremarkable assistant, while Catherine Walker was becoming one of the company's largest silent investors. The annual Christmas party at the Grand Plaza Hotel was always Harrison's favorite opportunity to showcase his self-importance. This year was no different, except that it would be his last. "Sarah," he called out, his voice carrying across the ballroom. "Be a dear and fetch Mr. Richardson another drink. You know how he likes his scotch." I smiled pleasantly, even as I felt the familiar burn of indignation. Mr. Richardson, one of our biggest clients, looked uncomfortable. He was one of the few who actually treated support staff with respect. "Of course, Mr. Harrison," I replied, heading to the bar. As I waited for the drink, I checked my phone. A new email from my lawyers confirmed what I'd been waiting for. The final stock purchase had gone through. Mitchell Ventures now owned 51% of Meridian Group. Returning with the scotch, I found Harrison regaling his audience with another of his self-aggrandizing stories. "The key to success," he was saying, "is recognizing your natural place in the hierarchy. Take Sarah here." He gestured toward me without looking. "Started as my secretary 12 years ago. And that's exactly what she still is. None of this executive assistant nonsense. Know your place, that's what I always say." The sycophants around him chuckled dutifully. I handed Mr. Richardson his drink, noticing his slight head shake of disapproval at Harrison's behavior. Although Harrison continued, his voice slightly slurred from too much champagne. "I heard she's made some lucky investments. Probably got tips from listening to my phone calls." More laughter, more forced smiles. "Actually," Mr. Richardson interjected, "I've always found Sarah to be exceptionally knowledgeable about our industry. Just last week she provided some valuable insights about our cloud migration strategy." Harrison waved his hand dismissively. "Oh, she picks up bits and pieces, listening to important people talk. But let's be realistic, she's just a secretary who got lucky with some investments." Speaking of which, he turned to me with his condescending smile. "Why don't we go check on the catering? The shrimp cocktail is running low." I felt my phone buzz again. Another email, this time from the board of directors, confirming an emergency meeting for Monday morning. They didn't know it yet, but they would be meeting their new majority shareholder. "Right away, Mr. Harrison," I said sweetly. As I walked away, I heard him resume his monologue about natural hierarchies and knowing one's place. If only he knew how dramatically the hierarchy was about to change. What Harrison never understood was that being invisible had its advantages. While he was bragging about his golf handicap, I was learning about our employees' concerns, our clients' frustrations, and our company's weaknesses. Every time he sent me to fetch something, I built relationships with people he considered beneath him. Every time he left me to handle trivial details, I gained deeper insight into our operations. The real irony? I had tried to help him. During my first 5 years, I regularly prepared detailed reports about industry trends, potential improvements, and emerging opportunities. Harrison either ignored them or, worse, took credit for the few he bothered to read. Eventually, I stopped sending them directly to him and started sending them to clients like Mr. Richardson instead, building my own network of influence. That network had proved invaluable when I began my careful acquisition of company stock. The same people Harrison dismissed helped me understand the true value of Meridian Group and its potential if properly managed. Back in my apartment that night, I reviewed the documents one final time. Everything was in order. Mitchell Ventures' ownership was now majority controlling, the board meeting was scheduled, and my team of lawyers had vetted every detail. I opened my laptop and began composing an email to the entire company set to be sent automatically at 9 a.m. Monday morning. The weekend passed slowly. I spent it preparing, selecting the perfect power suit, reviewing company financials, and finalizing my strategic plan for Meridian's future. Harrison, I knew, would be nursing a hangover on his yacht, blissfully unaware that his reign was ending. Monday morning arrived clear and cold. I got to the office at my usual time, 7:30 a.m., well before Harrison's typical 10 a.m. arrival. My desk looked the same as it had for 12 years, but today would be different. Today, everything would change. At 8:45, board members began arriving for the emergency meeting. They looked confused when their phones buzzed with calendar updates, redirecting them from the main conference room to the rarely used executive boardroom on the top floor. Harrison wasn't even in the building yet. At 8:55, I gathered my materials and headed to the executive boardroom. The security guard, Tom, who Harrison never bothered to learn the name of, smiled and held the door for me. "Big meeting today, Ms. Mitchell." "The biggest, Tom," I replied. "And please call me Sarah." At 8:59, I stood outside the boardroom, listening to the confused murmurs within. My phone showed one new message. "Harrison's stuck in traffic. Says to start without him. Jessica, his new assistant." Perfect. At exactly 9 a.m., as my company-wide email was delivering to hundreds of inboxes throughout the building, I straightened my jacket, took a deep breath, and opened the boardroom doors. 12 pairs of eyes turned to me, expressions ranging from confusion to annoyance. "Excuse me, Bernard Walsh," the board chairman began, "but this is a private." "Good morning, everyone," I interrupted smoothly, moving to the head of the table. "My name is Catherine Walker. You may know me better as Sarah Mitchell. And as of 9 o'clock this morning, I am 51% of Meridian Group." The room erupted in chaos, but I remained standing, calm and composed. After all, I had been preparing for this moment for 12 years. As I waited for the initial shock to subside, I could hear the growing commotion outside the boardroom as employees began reading my email. And somewhere in traffic, Harrison's phone was undoubtedly blowing up with notifications. He had no idea that his familiar corner office would have a very different occupant when he finally arrived. The boardroom at Meridian Group had hosted many dramatic moments over the years, but nothing quite like this. As I stood at the head of the table, watching the board members process my announcement, I could hear the growing commotion outside. My company-wide email was having exactly the effect I'd anticipated. "This is preposterous," Bernard Walsh spluttered, his face turning an interesting shade of red. "You're Harrison's secretary." I smiled, sliding copies of my documentation across the polished mahogany table. "I'm Catherine Walker, majority shareholder of Meridian Group through Mitchell Ventures. And yes, I'm also Sarah Mitchell, the woman who has actually been running this company while Harrison played golf." The board members frantically flipped through the documents, stock certificates, voting rights transfers, legal validations. Everything was perfectly in order, as they were discovering with increasing dismay. But how? Patricia Reynolds, one of the few female board members, asked. She seemed more intrigued than outraged. 12 years of careful investment," I replied, taking my seat, Harrison's seat, at the head of the table. While Harrison was bragging about his latest yacht purchase, I was reinvesting every penny I earned into company stock. While he was dismissing my market analyses, I was using that same insight to time my purchases perfectly. The elevator chimed outside. From the sudden burst of voices, I knew Harrison had finally arrived. Right on cue. The boardroom doors burst open. Harrison stood there, face flushed, tie askew, holding his phone with my company-wide email displayed. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, waving the phone. Then he saw me sitting in his chair. "Sarah, what are you doing? Get out of my seat." "Good morning, James," I said calmly. "Please, take a seat." We were just discussing the change in company leadership. Leadership? What? His eyes fell on the documents in front of the board members. "This is some kind of joke. Sarah's my secretary, for God's sake." "Actually," Patricia Reynolds interjected, reading from the papers, "she's our majority shareholder. And according to these documents, she's also our new CEO." Harrison's laugh was borderline hysterical. "This is ridiculous. She can't. I won't." "You won't what, James?" I stood up slowly. Won't accept that the just a secretary you've been belittling for 12 years now owns your company? Won't acknowledge that while you were building your reputation, I was building actual value? Please sit down, we have a lot to discuss. Something in my tone made him comply, dropping heavily into a chair. I pressed a button on the intercom. Jessica, please come in. Harrison's new assistant entered, looking nervous. I smiled warmly at her. Jessica, would you please distribute the updated organizational charts and strategic plan? She nodded, passing out thick folders to everyone present. Harrison stared at his like it might bite him. Now I continued, let's talk about Meridian's future. Our client satisfaction rates have dropped 15% in the past 2 years. Our top talent retention is at an all-time low, and our market share in emerging technologies is practically non-existent. Those numbers can't be right, Harrison protested weakly. Our quarterly reports are creatively edited to hide our declining performance, I finished. Did you think I didn't notice the discrepancies when you made me prepare them? Or how about the client complaints you had me file away? Or maybe the exit interviews you never bothered to read? The board members were now examining the real numbers I'd included in their packets. Their expressions ranged from shock to anger. Mr. Harrison, Bernard Walsh said slowly, is this accurate? Have we really lost the Anderson account? Well, yes, I answered for him, along with 3 other major clients in the past month alone. But that's about to change. I opened my own folder. I've spent years developing a comprehensive transformation strategy, everything from client retention initiatives to employee development programs to technological innovation pipelines. For the next hour, I laid out my vision for Meridian's future. The board members, initially skeptical, became increasingly engaged. Even Harrison fell silent, perhaps finally realizing just how much he had underestimated me. This is all very impressive, Patricia Reynolds said finally, but why the secrecy? Why work as a secretary all these years? I smiled. Because being underestimated is valuable. While everyone was busy ignoring me, I learned everything about this company, from the ground up. I know our strengths, our weaknesses, and most importantly, our potential. And what happens now? Harrison asked quietly. It was the first intelligent question he asked all morning. Now you have a choice. I turned to face him directly. You can fight this, waste time and money on legal battles you'll ultimately lose, or you can take the generous retirement package outlined on page 42 of your folder. He flipped to the page, his eyes widening at the number. It's more than fair, I continued. In fact, it's probably more than you deserve. But unlike you, James, I understand the value of ending things professionally. The next few hours were a blur of meetings, announcements, and transitions. By lunchtime, news of the change in leadership had spread throughout the company. The reactions were telling. The senior executives who had followed Harrison's example of arrogance were updating their resumes, while the overlooked middle managers and support staff were cautiously optimistic. Mr. Richardson, our biggest client, called personally to congratulate me. I always knew you were more than Harrison's secretary, he said, looking forward to working with a CEO who actually understands our needs. By the end of the day, Harrison had cleaned out his office, opting to take the retirement package rather than fight. As security escorted him out, he stopped by my new office, his old office. I don't understand, he said, sounding genuinely puzzled. Why did you ever say anything? I did, James. For years, I tried to show you better ways to run this company. You just couldn't hear me over the sound of your own ego. He shook his head slowly. All those reports, the analyses, those were actually good. They were excellent. And now they're going to help make Meridian excellent too. Good luck, James. Try to learn from this. After he left, I walked through the office, stopping to talk with employees at every level. Many of them shared stories of how they tried to contribute ideas over the years, only to be dismissed by Harrison and his inner circle. That changes today, I announced at an all-hands meeting. From now on, Meridian Group values talent and ideas regardless of title or position. We're creating a culture of innovation where everyone's voice matters. The transformation wasn't instant, but it was dramatic. Within 6 months, our client satisfaction rates had improved by 20%. Employee retention jumped to industry-leading levels. And our stock price? Let's just say my initial investments paid off even better than I'd anticipated. A year later, I sat in my office, no longer Harrison's old office, but a more modest space I'd had designed to be accessible to all employees. On my desk sat a small plaque that Jessica had given me, inscribed with words I'd once heard Harrison mockingly say, "Just a secretary." I kept it as a reminder that titles don't define capability, that power doesn't equal competence, and that sometimes the most valuable person in the room is the one nobody notices. The business magazines eventually caught on to our success story. The Secretary CEO became a trending topic, with headlines celebrating the dramatic transformation of Meridian Group. I gave a few interviews, but mostly stayed focused on what mattered, building the company I had always known we could be. Harrison? Last I heard, he'd bought another yacht. Old habits die hard, I suppose. But his story became a cautionary tale in corporate circles, a reminder that true leadership isn't about corner offices and long lunches. It's about vision, dedication, and the wisdom to recognize talent regardless of title. As for me, I kept my old desk calendar as a reminder. On it, circled in red, was the date of that Christmas party where Harrison had dismissed me one final time. Below it, I'd written a quote from my grandmother: "Let them underestimate you until they overestimate their own importance." These days, when I interview potential executives, I always ask how they treat their assistants. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that you never know who might be quietly building an empire while serving coffee. And every year at the company Christmas party, now a much more inclusive event, I raise a toast to the overlooked, the underestimated, the ones still waiting for their moment. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's world. It's about building a better one of your own.